an eagerly anticipated sign-off from one of the world's biggest stars, a raucous debut punk album, an 11th full-length effort from Scottish post-punk royalty, a third LP by an English electronic duo, and a fifth studio album from the project of an American psych-tinged country singer. This is 5 to 9's Album of the Month for January 2025. I'm Andrew Belt, editor of the 5 to 9 blog, and joining me for the first episode in 2025 are Karl Blakesley of New Music Central and Kiley Larsen, the founder of Santa Fe record label Mañana Records. So been a little while, as it always is, for the between the last one of the previous year, first this. How are you both doing?
Yeah, good. It's good to be back.
Yeah, hanging in there.
The beginning of year kind of, that sums it up. Hanging in there with we're waiting for things to happen, and certainly at least over here, warmth to return.
You could use the Kylie's already moved into his apocalypse shelter.
There we go, camping down. But we're not too far off spring at least. So I mean, so just for a recap on where we left things off, we crowned our 2024 album of the year to Fontaine's DC with Romance. They followed in the footsteps of inaugural winners Young Fathers with their album Heavy Heavy. And you can watch the 2024 Album of the Year episode, which is split into two parts on our YouTube channel. But now we embark on a third year of the pod. But before we get into the first 5 albums we've reviewed this year, keen to see what else floated your boat in January. So Karl, I'll move to you first. Top 3 musical highlights from January.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to go for 2 because it was quite a slow start to the year.
This is 3.
Yeah, there we go. But it was one of those where, one festival and a couple of shows, but I'm going to save the show highlight for next month as it rolls into February too. You probably know what it is, Andrew, but the two albums I've been spinning a fair bit in January. Quite a few releases I've enjoyed, but not too many, I would say, have blown me away. Like we had, Marika Hackman last year, early on, that kind of stayed all the way through. I think the one that's probably got the best chance of doing the same this year, out of everything I've heard so far, my favourite has been Eusexua from FKA Twigs. Fantastic album. Enjoyed LP1, but a sophomore record, Magdalene, was in my top 5 records of 2019. Still a record that I go back to fairly frequently. Probably one of my favorite albums of the last decade or so, I'd say. When she came out with her mixtape Capri Songs a couple of years ago, it was one that left me quite lukewarm, to put it politely. But it was just like a complete change of direction. Just didn't connect with it at all, really. And I think because of that, I went into this one with quite mild expectations. And I think as a result of, not really having too high hopes for it, I've ended up really loving it. This was kind of the album that I wanted after Magdalene. It's like where that was full of vulnerability and heartbreak. Eusexua is just, full of liberation and sensuality. And there's just some great cuts on there. The title track, Room of Fools. You've got Northwest turning up on Child Like Things and rapping in Japanese, which is crazy. And then, it's just a great album. And then my favorite right at the end, Wanderlust, where Twig's vocal performance on that song is just spine tingling, and reminds me of some of the best moments of Magdalene as well. So that's probably my top pick. And then the other one that I'll mention, because I mentioned it in our Album of the Year episode, which was the debut album from Nottingham's sister duo at Alt Black Era. Released their debut album, Rave Immortal, which, as you can see, I'm repping as well tonight. I think it's a debut that shows the hype around them is fully justified. While it's not a a perfect project by any means. I think it's one that demonstrates the massive potential that they have. It still blows my mind that they only formed in the last couple of years, 2022. And they already, the leap from what they did on their debut EP Freak Show to how they've matured as songwriters on this one. It's quite incredible, really. Really catchy hooks throughout, some really exhilarating electronic moments. And yeah, it's just a real adrenaline shot, I would say. Just wall-to-wall bangers. And yeah, it's just crazy to me. Only 17 and 20 years old still, so plenty of room to grow. And I think it's a debut that feels like a great introduction rather than presenting the finished article. But I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah, given their age and everything like that. So yeah, great to see a Nottingham outfit killing it. And yeah, look forward to seeing where this album takes them. So those were my 2 picks.
Mm. So return to form and an exciting new project there. So Kiley, over to you. I mean, what got you through January aside from potentially some of the 5 albums we're going to discuss?
Yeah, I'm glad Karl brought up FKA Twigs because, to save all the stuff, I felt the exact same way going into this album. And I skipped the singles. I was not really anticipating it at all. And then I think this January, more so than, the last handful I can remember, has just been pretty barren. So I jumped into that and immediately just loved it. I definitely see it holding out throughout the year. And I think more so than anything that we're about to cover or what I've heard for February, it's just really been my favorite album of the year in a 1 month span. The other 2, I'll bend the rules. I'll go with 3 instead of 2 like Karl. But catching up with some of the stuff I missed last year, this one is definitely I didn't even bother sending it to you guys, but Melt by Disco, a Atlanta jam band that I really I played the hell out of that record during January, and it was the serotonin boost that I was looking for while I took shelter in the hobbit hole here. And then the third one, hesitated whether to send it to you guys or not. I did not. Waldo's Gift, their new album, Malcolm's Law. They're from Bristol, and a trio that they're their own thing. A little bit of jazz, a little bit of electronic, a little bit of jam. I've listened to some of their stuff in the past, and I guess for some reason assumed they were an American band. But the lead track off this new album is called Candy Floss. And so instead of cotton candy, as we'd say over here. And so, that sent me, okay, where are these guys from? And some Bristol lads. So anyway, yeah, sparse month, but the things I did enjoy, I really leaned into them.
Good stuff. We'll have to check them out now. Now you've mentioned them. And I was anticipating Karl choosing FKA Twigs. Didn't know that both of you would. So I decided not to include her, even though I also have enjoyed You Sexy. I think it's real return to form for sure. So the three I've got. Firstly, and the one I enjoyed the most is Landfill by Young Knives. So post-punk band from where they've got quite an interesting place where they're from originally, but sort of middle of the country in the UK. And Ashby de la Zouch in Leicestershire. I just love that name. Anyway, so that's where they're from. And yeah, 2 brothers, Henry and the other brother known as the House of Lords. So I mean, a lot of it can be quite silly. Certainly their sort of early albums when they made a racket during the indie landfill era, hence the callback with this title of the album. Kind of went from the absurd to really hard hitting, heavy topics. Just ones who sort of had a few good albums, then seemed to fade into obscurity. They had a hiatus as well in the mid 2010s. Then came back with something very out there and completely throwing away what they were before in 2020 with this psych driven album, which had its moments, but I can't see the same fans they previously had getting on board with that. And then this album, it seems that they've incorporated a little bit of that whilst going back to their roots, and just one which, I enjoyed. Maybe I'm the only person who enjoyed it looking at albumoftheyear.org. But so far, that's one of the ones I've really enjoyed the most, and great that they're back and kind of harking back to their roots, but kind of augmenting with some of the more experimental side of their music. And then second one, I mean, Kylie, you mentioned Ty Segal's January project, so self-titled Freckle. 29 minutes, so it's light, it's snackable, that's the sort of thing I like, as you know. And you think last year I picked Three Bells. I was really hoping it was going to be Ty Segall back on song and producing something like Manipulator, but it wasn't. Whereas this is brief, but just highlighting some of his best moments. He takes the kind of high notes because it's a collaboration with this other singer I'm not familiar with, to be honest. I did actually briefly look on my phone before it came to me, but they don't even have a description on the streaming platform. So the other guy just takes this very deep baritone, and the two together works quite nicely. And one I've really enjoyed, actually, just quite easy listening. And then finally, just an EP from Mañana. It's called Bad Love. It's 4 tracks. It's, if you enjoyed kind of Michael Kiwanuka and Laura Marling last year and those kind of wintry efforts, then this 4 tracks from one of Mitski, I believe it's Mitski's session player. Then this is one which is worth a listen if you want to continue bathing in wintry melancholy. Which might not be for everyone, but at least at 4 tracks, so you're not dwelling too long. They're the 3 picks I have, and that kind of summarizes what we enjoyed outside potentially of the 5 which we're about to discuss. So first we have Who Let the Dogs Out by Lambrini Girls. This was a pick from 5 to 9 Writer, and many other places Writer, including the Nottingham publication, which you write for, Karl, Gemma Cockrell. So remind me of the Nottingham publication.
Left Lion.
That's the one. Yeah. That's not, so yes, and many other places. So Gemma Cockrell, you can follow her on Instagram and Twitter at Gem Cockrell. She selected this one, and Karl, I think you had a bit of background on Lambrini Girl, so I'm going to sort of hand over to you to start us off.
Yeah, for sure. I'll shout out Gemma's got her own publication as well, the Knots Review, which any fellow Knots guys definitely check that one out as well. But yeah, for sure, Lambrini Girls. I think it was one. First, when I saw Gemma had picked this one for this month, I was quite skeptical. I had seen some awkward clips of their live shows and some of their early singles I didn't really enjoy, so I was fully expecting to not have a good time with this one. But I've actually ended up glad that this one landed on here. I think I hold my hands up here and say I think I slightly misjudged them. I had in my head that they were just like a more punk wet leg, but I definitely think that there's more to them than that going into this one. Listening to this debut, definitely hearing a lot of the elements of, some of the recent punk bands that I like, Mannequin Pussy, Amil and the Sniffers, just, no nonsense, straight talking, full throttle tracks about, homosexuality, nepotism, immigration, toxic masculinity, unachievable beauty standards, all of that coming through here. And they tackle these heavy subjects with plenty of, wit, tongue-in-cheek humor, basically just exposing, society's ridiculous notions on these topics by ridiculing them kind of in the songs. So, there's some hard-hitting moments on here as well, was it company culture and big dick energy, both deal with the kind of everyday sexual harassment that women unfortunately have to endure. And then you've got you're not from around here, kind of addressing, both the racist and capitalist connotations to the, the subject of immigration. And again, their own unique and quite cutting dialogue that they put forward on these tracks. And then, they round it all off with probably my favorite track on the whole project, which will immediately get this an R rated or whatever the equivalent is on YouTube, which is Cuntology 101, which basically sets out it's a song that kind of sets out their mission statement. It's, from its synths and bass, some great one-liners about, shagging behind some bins. And there's another one about, doing a poo at your friend's house, being cunty. There's it's a great song. But ultimately behind all the funny one-liners, it's a song about empowerment and self-love. And I've got a lot of time for it, I must say. And I think there's a lot to like here. I think my reservation with it is that, there is other artists in that space right now that are probably maybe doing it a little bit better and in more interesting ways musically. Most importantly, I'd say, just looking at the last year, it doesn't have the eclecticism of, say, the Bob Dylan record or, those jaw-dropping riffs of Amil's last two records. And, the change of pace and the musicality, that balance that Mannequin Pussy's last record had. So, I'll give them credit in the fact that, those artists are all multiple albums in at this point, and this is only Lambrini Girl's first effort. But it's one of those where, at the same time, that's their competition, and it feels like they're coming out of the gates, maybe already lagging behind on that front. So, I think they need to evolve and do it quite quick if they want to have the longevity that those other artists are seeing. But, for sure, overall, one that I enjoyed much more than I was expected to. I think the single pace of it has stopped me maybe going back to it too much, but it's one of those that, when I'm shuffling or when I do dive back into it, there's plenty of moments that put a smile on my face. So, decent debut and a welcome surprise, I would say.
Kiley, was it a welcome surprise for you?
No, not at all. I always feel terrible, when there's the outside contributor puts, the album forth, and because I always, I don't want to be this way, but this record that, Karl, I mean, you summed it up in so many words the same way I feel about it. The way I kept on thinking about it is like, down the road in Albuquerque, there's this one venue that a lot of the times likes to do 5 bands in a night, which is not my thing at all. I think 3 is usually pushing it. But these shows start at 7 and go till midnight. And it feels like Lambrini Girls are the 11 o'clock spot. And I've been there for 4 hours, and I'm ready to go home. I think it's frustrating because, as we've discussed about a lot of the albums that you mentioned, that the social issues, the relatable viewpoints of being on this planet in 2025. I really want to be on board with what they're covering here, but it's a very long 29 minutes to me, very one note, and kind of all runs together, and it at the end of the day, extremely grating. So yeah, that I will not be revisiting this one.
A brief review for a brief album. So so yeah, you know, I
It was good for cleaning the toilet when I was listening to it.
no, you know, yeah, I mean, it has got energy. Maybe not big dick energy, but it does have. So yeah, I mean, I'm probably more with Karl, that I wasn't expecting much, but ended up enjoying it more than I did. I do have a quite different view on one of the songs, which I'll get to. But for me, I mean, and when I've heard it on shuffle as well, I'm going, oh, what's this Idols track? It's like early Idols. You know, there's some real kind of cutting bass on here. So I found like the instrumentation better than I was expecting. Really, it's really caught a bit of the fire in certain circles, it seems. You know, I saw some people saying album of the year or this kind of stuff, so I was quite intrigued. But yeah, I mean, 29 minutes where they do pack the thing, which I suppose we all seem to agree on, is they pack in a lot of social issues within them, quite a lot of humour packed into it. Because yes, I smirked when he mentioned it before. He then obviously made a very serious point, Karl, about the sexual harassment, about big dick energy. But I mean, you know, I've got from here about "you're not that big" as being one of the lines from that song, and it's funny as well as biting, and you know, addressing toxic masculinity and you know, these ills of society. So I think they pack in quite a lot, but I suppose the thing which does pull it back is that kind of lack of variety in what they're doing here. I think Bad Apple is a great start. Dissonant bass, you know, speedy guitar solo in there as well. I had Idols / Bob Dylan and then used Idols in quite a lot of my other songs in terms of what it reminded me of. Yeah, Big Dick Energy, I think it's great. Company Culture. Michael, I don't want to suck you off on your lunch break. You know, so yeah, I mean, it's addressing things, but a bit of humor as well. And then other ones I liked, You're Not From Around Here, which I thought was an interesting take on globalization, and not quite the kind of, you know, aping a closed-minded point of view, but more kind of the protection of kind of local life from the corporations. It seemed to come from that point of view, was my take on it. But you know, songs are there for interpretation. Special Different was the one which I thought had a bit more oomph than the others. And then Love was quite a fun dancey song. But Cuntology 101, not for me. That was, so when you say like that, I just thought, what is this? Like, I'd quite, you know, enjoyed it up until that point. And that one, I mean, the notes I have on this is catchy, but kind of terrible. And yeah, just for me, just a list, whereas the other ones had a bit more going on behind the humour, that one just seemed like one joke.
It's a good joke. I'd say liking that.
I mean, saying that word,
I think it's cunty.
yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's the kind of thrill of the whole taboo word.
Yeah, I felt that way about the entire album. It was just juvenile and stuff that's supposed to be funny. It's like, yep. So edgy, aren't you?
I think there's a bit of Marmite about this band. That's clear. But you know, you said, Karl, that like maybe they kind of adapt to kind of have longevity, but in a way, wouldn't it be fitting if they sort of fizzled and then it was just a short-lived thing. I don't know if you want to adhere to the real punk kind of ethos. So certainly ones to watch, I think. And yes, generate a lot of feeling, I think, in this in the listener. So yeah, mixed reviews, I would say there, but
I like that idea. So I can be a talking head in the documentary in 20 years, and I'd say, "Oh yeah, I loved them from the beginning. Hugely influential.
chose them on the pod."
Joe, like fire."
I was going to say, do you reckon they'll last longer or shorter than the Baha Men?
Longer than them. I mean, I don't know how long they lasted, but they seem to last 2 songs. Or no, 1 song. Yeah, I'm not sure they released about.
Think about the reach of that one song.
Yeah.
Wow.
They
It's
don't
probably
say
sickening
there's
how
nothing.
many listens there are.
Yeah, there's nothing for the Shrek soundtrack here, or whichever. I feel like that was in 10 movies, so I can't remember a specific.
And 5 of them were Shrek, probably.
Well, I look forward to the Lambrini Girls soundtrack, so I'll be intrigued to see what album that soundtracks. But there we go. So debut album, like, so some positives and also some negatives there, I would say. So mixed start to our first episode this year. Second, we have Hallucinating Love by Maribou State. And this was Karl's pick. So over to you.
Yeah, so bit of background to this one. So Maribou State, electronic duo of Chris Davids and Liam Ivory, a band that I discovered many moons ago through Ministry of Sound Chilled collection back in the day. If you remember that, if you remember those. But yeah, they really came. That was like my first kind of introduction to them, but they really came invested in them off the back of their amazing second album, Kingdom in Colour. One of my favorite records of 2018. Obviously, I mentioned it when we reviewed Barry Can't Swim's album. And yeah, they also headlined Lost Village kind of around that album coming out too. Fantastic headline set. And although, yeah, they're not the same genre, but I find they're very similar, certainly in their vibe, to Bombay Bicycle Club for me. Just really uplifting, jubilant music. They've got all these like globally influenced like sounds kind of seeping through. And it's just that music that's kind of tailor-made for summer festival season. So my only concern was it was coming out in January, but yeah, I think it was last year that they announced that this third album was finished, and yeah, they were due to headline Lost Village once again. But then I think it was in kind of April, May time, Chris Davids released a statement sort of telling fans that, you know, for a couple of years he had been living with this rare brain condition, which was causing all these like debilitating headaches and insomnia, and that, you know, it had gotten so bad that he had to undergo brain surgery for the condition I think it was the back end of 2023. So yeah, naturally, you know, in that statement they announced, you know, recovery was taking longer than expected, and then live shows would have to be cancelled. And yeah, the album release was being postponed until basically he was able to fully commit to the band again. So safe to say, yeah, this one, Hallucinating Love, arrives, and it's one that's been built in a real time of what sounds like, you know, pain, uncertainty, turmoil for the band. But it's one of those that listening to it, you probably wouldn't know it. I think like its predecessor, it's, you know, it's vibrant, it's optimistic. It's a record that's just like so full of life and just a joy to listen to. There's not really a bad moment on here. You know, they link up once again with vocalist Holly Walker, who again comes out with some of the best moments. Other Side, which was, you know, my favorite of the pre-release singles. It's got that great guitar groove just running through it. Black Oak, another of the singles. opens the record here. It's got those wonderful strings, and yeah, hands down my favorite track would then be Peace Talk, where just the arrangement of that song, I could listen to those strings all day quite happily, and then Holly's voice on a loop just over the top of it. And then all those other like sonic flourishes that come in. There's a great guitar solo towards the back end of the track. I think that song alone is probably one of my favorites of the year so far. Just an amazing song. And then the instrumental that follows as well, Passing Clouds, is like a real nice kind of, almost like an aftermath of that song. Just again, subtle strings and then this piano arrangement. And yeah, that's just what stands out. It's one of those records that's hard to do it justice. It's just, the arrangements that they put forward are just really beautiful to listen to. All the different textures that kind of like fly around your ears. Really soulful and just a joy to experience for me. So yeah, as a fan of Kingdoms in Colour, this is basically Kingdoms in Colour 2. Similar textures, similar feeling, similar collaborators. I'd say that's maybe the only one downside to the record for me, is that it is kind of, they're given the same again. But I think if you love that record as much as I did, then you'll be very happy with this one as well. So yeah, great record and some real high points in the likes of Other Side of Peace Talk for me.
So Kylie, what did you make of Hallucinating Love?
I absolutely love this record. I think it was the rare time. How many singles were there? 5 before it came out? I want to say.
So. I only listened to a couple, but I know it was half the album probably. Yeah.
Yeah, all of them were fantastic. So I was definitely in the darkness looking forward to this one. And it's a longtime lover of down tempo and their last record. It hits all the warm fuzzy feelings that you need. Again, I think we've got a lot of the same notes on this one. Holly Walker, again, those tracks that she is on, she really just takes it to the next level. And building towards Peace Talk and Passing Clouds, I agree that it is, a lot of what you expected from Maribou State. But I would love even just an EP that's more of just Passing Clouds and, the chiller side of things. Just every time that track comes on, it kind of just catches you off guard with the stop and the stillness to these big soundscapes that came before it. Echoes is the only one on there that I'm still trying to come around to. I can't quite figure out what's not jumping out to me on that one, but I think Rolling Stone is a excellent closer. And yeah, just the way January has gone, this has been a much needed record, and I'm thankful that we have it. Very, very good.
So yeah, I'm going to be the outlier here. I think some good moments. One of my Holly Walker is the thing which I agree with you both on, that I think she is the singer on this record who brings the best vocals. Because I find that the vocals in general on this record are one of the things which brings it down from what's generally good music. And I'd wish there was more. Maybe they should just do one with Holly Walker throughout. But yeah, there's some good tracks on here. I mean, Passing Clouds, I'm also in agreement with. Really like that one. I liked Echoes. If that's, is it EKO''S? So it might be Echoes. It might be Ecos. I don't know. We need to look into that. But yeah, thought it was a bit Springsteen Born to Run with its xylophone in that one. Agree that at the beginning, Black Oak and Otherwise is a very, very strong start, and also the third track as well. And that one as well, it's got, I guess it's 2, remember? It's like 2 eyes, which is the kind of Roman numeral style. So rather. I imagine it's that rather than Il, but as in Il Duce or something. But for that one, quite hushed but catchy. Some old school synth, piano, jazz music. So yeah, I think those ones, sort of the 4 or 5 were the ones I really enjoyed. And then I felt on some of the other ones, they're just, I kind of felt like an All I Need with Andrea Triana. It was like the vocals were recorded in an echoey room. It just didn't quite work for me on that side. Also Bloom with Guida. I really didn't like her vocals, to be honest. So yeah, it just felt like from that side of things, it kind of brought down the overall kind of quality of the music, which was a bit of a shame, because when paired with a strong singer, you've got very, very good music in general here. So that's kind of where I landed really, and I'm probably more on 4 or 5 of the tracks being ones I want to come back to, and the rest not being overly fussed about. So yeah. That's I suppose more favourable. Well, we'll find out at the end, won't we? But more favourable than I think than our first review there for Maribou State. And then our third album, The Bad Fire by Mogwai. I believe this was Kiley's selection for the poll. Yeah. And I've got here in my notes that it was the first win in the poll for Kiley in a while. So great news. Thank you everyone for voting. And yeah, over to Kiley.
Yeah, I feel like you know, I have to remember sometimes what we've covered on the pod and what I've written in the past. So, I'll keep it brief. Mogwai, back when I was in middle school, high school, late 90s, early 2000s, just really one of those bands that got me into post rock. It helped that, what was it called? E-music, I believe, was like one of the first legal music services. And I just remember downloading like their entire discography up to that point, and shoving multiple albums onto one burnable CD, and just really hugely influential band for me when I was that age. And then enjoyed Mr. Beast, and then it was kind of I would say a quiet period for my fandom of Mogwai until As the Love Continues came out in 2021. And it's kind of funny to go back, as I was listening to The Bad Fire, I was going back on album of the year, and it's funny like how many Mogwai fans didn't like As the Love Continues, when I really think it's just them hitting their stride again. As we know, it hit number 1 on the UK charts. That was a big deal. So I threw The Bad Fire up on the poll because I was hoping they could continue that streak, and for me, unfortunately, they did not. This record, it's only 10 tracks, but every song is for the most part 5 minutes plus, which I'm not opposed to. But every song on here, they pick a riff or an idea and build on it and build on it and build on it, and it's just I think a slog to get through. I think God Gets You Back, which I believe was the first single. Great way to open this record. Unfortunately for me, the highlight, even starting with High Chaos, the second track, I was already like, damn, is this what we're going to do for the next, almost hour long? And it pains me because I've put this on multiple times. Like, what am I missing? What am I missing? And it just, it comes off as like a jam session, and we're getting, the first take of everything. So yeah, I'm kind of bummed out about this record. I was really looking forward to it, and it's where Lambrini Girls is a 29-minute slog. Like this is a true 55 minutes. Just damn, I can't get on board with it. Bummed out. So I would say a mid grade for myself. Some good ideas, but just kind of in the end feels like it doesn't go anywhere.
Does it go anywhere for you, Karl?
Yes, I mean, I'm sort of in the same boat as Kiley, I'd say. I mean, Mogwai, a band that, always kind of been familiar with. I think it was the Zinedine Zidane soundtrack, and the Hawk is Howling. Those two kind of came out quite quick after each other, and that was like my first touch point with them way back when. And never really dived into them fully until a few years back. I saw them headlining Festival Number 6, which no longer exists, RIP. Great festival in Wales. And that performance just blew me away. And Every Country's Son had come out around that time. And I kind of got back from that festival and just, lost myself in that record for a good while, really took to that record as a result. And then since then I've gone back to, Young Team and their earlier ones, thanks to like the music Twitter polls and stuff like that. But like Cardi said, As the Love Continues, that was probably even compared to like their early work, I think that was definitely one of their best records. Got them, UK number 1, as you said, but their first Mercury Prize nod as well. And I think it, it was heralded as one of their finest works, maybe not by the album of the year folks, but by every other metric certainly was. And like Kiley, had the same expectations, like high expectations going into this one, especially off the back of, Lion Rumpus, which was the single that I had heard, which for me is just everything that is great about Mogwai's music. Got the scintillating riffs, amidst this like captivating and, quite like triumphant wall of sound going on. And I think it still ends up one of my favorite tracks on here. And then God Gets You Back. Really love the glossy, like synth-soaked nature of that song. Just brings the record alive. Goes in all these interesting, playful directions. High Chaos I did actually quite like. It's got, I think it's those grungy guitars that come through. But I mean, kind of aside from those 3 tracks, everything is still decent, but it just doesn't captivate me like some of their previous work has. It does feel more of the same without. I think the biggest thing is the emotional pull that some of their music has is kind of lacking for me on this one. I mean, definitely compared to As the Love Continues and, some of the songs on there, definitely kind of, you felt those tracks, whereas there's not really any of those moments on here for me. I think the closest they come to it is Fact Boy, the closing track. One of the like more moody cuts on here. And then 18 Volcanoes, which is the one where, Stuart Bamford's vocals come through in the static. I think that's quite, a good moment. But I think I like everything on here, but similar to Kiley, I think, it's one that falls short of their own lofty standards, I'd say. So an interesting listen without being a mind-blowing one for me.
So I'm not as well versed as you guys, but As the Love Continues was also one on my first kind of Mercury Prize nominee listening year. I think it was COVID year, so had a bit more time on my hands. So loved it. Great record. Like The Bad Fire, it's not As the Love Continues. However, after kind of on the maybe first couple of listens, feeling broadly similar to what you've shared, it then kind of caught fire a bit with me, and one which I've ended up really enjoying, with highlights being for me, High Chaos, which I've got here is like a movie soundtrack for a serious heist film. Toys with the listener like a game of cat and mouse. So that one, really good fun. Fanzine Made of Flesh, I think it's quite a cheery rock tune, with its kind of auto-tune whispery vocals, lyrics about the desolation felt after a lover leaves. So yeah, I mean, it's probably typical that some of the oblique references here, which are not like, in your face, but yeah, I sort of got into under the skin of it after a while. And the third one, which I would say were the three favorites. So Hammer Room, which I enjoyed the kind of plucked strings on it, the electronic drums. Made it quite trip hoppy. And yeah, there's like a dub style drop, which goes on to like a more focused like main theme and these aeroplane type noises. Just really enjoyed that. So I think overall, I think all of them are differing levels of how compelling they are. All quite cinematic, which I guess is quite what they do. With not too many vocals usually peppered across their music, but yeah, this was one I really enjoyed. I think there were a few which didn't quite, were more kind of middle of the road. Like If You Find This World Bad, you should see some of the others, which kind of quite slow guitar to start, and that one just didn't really, reach a crescendo at all. Didn't kind of justify that. A little bit in the same way I felt as End Song, I think it is on the Cure's album, where it just kind of, okay, where are we going to here? But yeah, one which really enjoyed, and yeah, I think I need to do more exploring of this band and check out the stuff which grabbed you, Kiley, initially, and what you've latterly kind of got into as well, Karl. And then I'll have a more balanced view, and maybe we'll disown their last album, which and join the album of the year crowd. But yeah, so yeah, we're fairly mixed on these first three, I would say, at the moment. So let's see how we do in number 4. Sol y Sombra by Rose City Band. And Kiley, this was your selection.
Yeah, I mean, if it's anything like the last time we had Rose City Band, I feel like we'll continue to be fairly mixed on this. But yeah, one of my current favorite bands, Rose City Band, led by Ripley Johnson of, I guess you'd say Wooden Ships and Moon Duo, but it appears to me the Rose City Band seems to be the main plate these days. Yeah, follow up to 2023's Garden Party, which we reviewed here. And Rose City Band is forever cosmic country, psychedelic, hazy, all the words you could use to describe it. And I don't think they really change the formula at all on Sol y Sombra. But I do think that, this is one of those albums that if you're a fan of the band, there's just the little pieces of it that I think they improve on. Start the big picture here. I think the production on this record is just gorgeous, especially the drum tone on this album. I just cannot get over how great the drums sound. And then all of my reviews for their records, I think I reviewed the 3 before this, and always hinting at Barry Walker, who plays pedal steel for them, that he's the secret sauce of the band. And I really think on this record they let him rip, and really built around his wizardry. Sol y Sombra, so you got the sun and the shade. I think for me, the part of this record that falters a little bit is the shade. Evergreen and Sunlight Days, especially Sunlight Days. It's 6 minutes long, and it just really kind of takes the wind out of the sails before Radio Song brings things back. And then I think it's similar to the piece we were talking about for Maribou State, La Mesa, which is like a little 2-minute instrumental here. I would love to hear some more of that idea from these guys, just to take it somewhere else. But yeah, I think overall, I would call this an improvement over Garden Party, just in the little pieces that I mentioned. And I'd probably put it as my second favorite overall for them, behind Summer Long and just ahead of Garden Party. So yeah, I'm satisfied with it. And let's hear if your guys' opinions have changed since 2023.
Over to Karl.
I mean, I'm sorry to say it hasn't. No, I mean, it was one of those where I was intrigued to check in with these guys again. Obviously, like you say, a couple of years ago, we listened to Garden Party. And like even before that, Kiley, you got me spinning. Was it Summer Lawn? And, one of the ones from Mean Joe as well. So, and yeah, I mean, you kind of touched it. I think it's fair to say this album is quite similar to what's come before. Plenty of, those laid back bluesy grooves, dreamy vocals. It's, music that's made for just chilling out in the sunshine. I think my favorite is probably the opener, Lights on the Way. It definitely stands out for me. It's got that, that great toe tapping tempo to it, those wonderful guitar slides. Just a fantastic way to start the records. You mentioned Radio Song, Wheels as well later in the records. Again, they've just got some really brilliant guitar work going on. And then, La Mesa, really dig that one as well. Got a bit of, Nile Rodgers and Chic going on with those like stuttering riffs and the bongos in the background. So I mean, it definitely has its moments for sure. I think the issue with this one, it's similar to Garden Party, where I think it's just arrived out of season. But I think even I can't remember when we did Garden Party, but I want to say it was like springtime. Whereas obviously this one's arrived certainly like roll back to January, and it was like the cold of winter here in the UK. And I think some of the tracks on here where they can be quite pedestrian in their pace. You mentioned it, kind of that run of Rolling Gold, Evergreen, Sunlight Days, The Walls. I think listening to those tracks in like the summer months, will be quite blissful. Stick that on, just sit on the balcony or out in the garden, and you'll be in a Sunlight Days, so to speak. But yeah, listening to it in the grey of January, February, to me, it can feel as dreary as maybe the weather here. So I think it's maybe it's a regional problem more than a Rose City band problem. We need to sort of weather out. But it's ultimately impacted how much I've connected with this one. And yeah, I think definitely when I'm listening through, it's those more upbeat tracks. So the soul side, that's pulling me in. So maybe one to return to when the weather turns a bit brighter. I think similar to Lambrini Girls for me, it's also just lacking that bit of variety maybe to keep me completely engaged from start to finish. But I feel like it's one, like a couple on the list actually this month, one that I might need to re-review later in the year, just to see if I feel the same way.
Yeah, the same pretty much as Karl, I'd say. So didn't appreciate Sombra, meant Shade. So a big part of the meaning of the album has completely gone over my head. But yeah, I was intrigued, and I don't know, maybe it's nostalgia. Like when Rose City Band, I was like, oh yeah, Rose City Band. Like, and I was remembering songs like Mariposa, which I really enjoyed from that record. You know, and some of the ones which were maybe a bit more playful. You know, so I thought, yeah, let's get into this one. And I would say where I've got to is that I prefer Garden Party. I think there was just a few moments which were, like I say, taking you away from the kind of overall tone of the record. And this one is very laid back. I definitely agree that the soul part, now that it's clear to see, particularly in the lyrical content and stuff, like that's the bit I enjoyed the most. The Lights in the Way, yeah, great start, cheery tune. You know, the lyrics of I Have Hope Again. Open Roads comes up with a nice kind of skiffle arrangement. That enjoying his surroundings. It's breezy. You know, initially I was like, this is nice just to break up the. I mean, I was probably listening on a cold and dark train going into London. So actually, you know, it's not so bad if you have that contrast. But yeah, when you do get to the kind of middle run, particularly Evergreen, that is when it just for me drifts. And yeah, just loses what was a good start to the album. And then picks up again when we get to Seeds of Light, where you got some bright guitar, and like both of you have mentioned, La Mesa, just really enjoyed that, just nice and funky. So Seeds of Light to Wheels is probably my sort of 3 top, like the best run on this record. Really like the guitar lick in Wheels. And then The Walls doesn't quite kind of keep up the momentum, but yeah, so some good moments which I feel in an EP of 5, I would really rate highly. But then yeah, let down by that kind of middle run, I would say, most of all, and could have done with more moments like La Mesa, and kind of just a few things which to change it up. Overall was where I got to. So yeah, we do like Rose City Band, but yeah, just want to see some elements of what Ripley's doing. Yeah, on his records. So we'll just wait to the next one, basically. And you asked the same question, Kylie. So there we go. And then finally, but last by no means least, we have Hurry Up Tomorrow by The Weeknd. So this was my selection, and I sort of discussed nostalgia in terms of, you know, Rose City Band we had on that 2 years ago. And I had like an aborted attempt at kind of doing album of the month just by album of the week was the attempt in one ambitious January 2022. So that was the initial springboard. Through.
I said, been there.
So that week was The Weeknd with Dawn FM, FKA Twigs, Capri Songs. There was also the Wombats. It's funny how those 3 have all swung back in this time of year. There was also Corey Wong, and then some really forgettable, awful, because there was just nothing that week. And imagine doing album of the week, ridiculous idea. But anyway, so it was only a year later that the album of the month came to fruition through my many messages on the formerly enjoyable Twitter platform. But yeah, that was my winner, basically, of the week, Dawn FM by The Weeknd, and also my introduction. Well, I did have one of the older albums, to be fair, but kind of getting back into music again, like really getting into one of his albums. So enjoyed that. When this swung around, FKA Twigs or him, I just thought, let's go with what happened, you know, at the germination of this idea, where we are right now, I suppose. And yeah, you know, Karl, you filled me in on a lot of the background of this being the end of a trilogy, and clearly what seems to be his kind of sign off to the musical world is The Weeknd. And maybe he'll go into the film side of things, which he seems to be enjoying, or TV, and stick there. Hadn't appreciated it was an hour and a half. Again, Karl, you notified me about that, and I might have chosen differently had I known that. But having said that, I think the intrigue level probably for all three of us was enough that we would have at least given it one listen. Again, we all kind of spoke a little bit about the preceding singles. Wasn't really loving them, but I just thought, no, stick with it. Let's see what comes out of this,
including the one that's not even on here. Right? Was it Dancing in the Flames?
Dancing in the Flames.
Yeah, it's not even on here. Yeah. Anyway,
I hadn't appreciated that. So I think I was mainly thinking of Sao Paulo, to be fair, and the kind of unforgettable, maybe not for the right reasons, video which I saw for that. So the writhing face in the belly. Anyway, so that one was kind of like, okay, let's see what the rest of it's all about. What I don't think you can fault this like, you know, big album is the kind of concept here. You know, he is signing off, or at least thematically. You know, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that in a couple of years later he comes back and he's just shed that kind of trilogy or whatever. But, you know, and that is, you know, thematically it's good. I think how he pieces it together. I love an album which it kind of like one song drifts into the next, and from a production level, I think this really ticks those boxes. I think also, you know, the lyrics for the most part are strong. And even the instrumentation and the variety is strong. But weirdly for The Weeknd, and this is always what I felt is his strength, the vocals on this record just don't, for me, do justice to his vocals. You know, he's talking about, you know, kind of losing the love of it and stuff, and it sounds like it in the I don't know, and maybe I need to listen to it more, because what I will say is that, and you know this, that I'm a little bit underbaked in my review of this. I didn't feel I'd listened to it enough to maybe give it my full you know, judgment. So maybe end of the year.
how is that possible at 90 minutes long?
It was a struggle. Yeah. I've got three. So I like to do an album in one go. I think this one I did in three different goes to get to the end, like of piecing it all together. But yeah, so I'm a bit underbaked in that regard, and I could appreciate a lot of layers of it. But for me, just on that element, the vocals, which I always think, you know, like they're almost Michael Jackson-esque in just how good his vocals are, and the draw which I've had since, I suppose, you know, the Twilight series and that song, and and first getting to know you know, The Weeknd as an artist. But yeah, that was a really strange one for me, and I just couldn't put my finger on it. So maybe I need to listen back, but maybe that is, I guess that's the intention, is to kind of convey this darkness he's feeling, and this real kind of you know, artist existential moment, really. So yeah, there are some really good moments on here, but then some which I didn't really care for, and like I say, I need to kind of go back. But Wake Me Up, I think, is a good start with Justice. Cry For Me, I really like. It's quite gothy actually, which is quite interesting. But you know, Open Hearts, I enjoyed. Again, more goth pop I've got here. Reflections Laughing, featuring Travis Scott and Florence the Machine. You know, positive sentiment about dying in the subject's arms. You know, Travails about being on the road. Given Up On Me. You know, kept going through others' faith in him. So there's like a little bit for his fans to take solace in. You know, and the one I enjoyed the most, which didn't make your Shawson selection card, but I can't wait to get there, which I just thought was a great kind of iconic feel, like callback. And they just felt in that track like a bit more in the vocals. And then also enjoyed Niagara Falls, Take Me Back to LA. I mean, basically, what I really enjoy in this album is more than an album's worth of songs. It just so happens that there are so many that there's also some which fall into the category, which is probably reaches its low point for me with Timeless featuring Playboy Carter. But yeah, so there we go. This one just not quite there with it on this initial group of listens. let's see what time does, and I'm sure maybe in years to come this will be like, this was the iconic send off, etc. And I'll be in one of those talking heads thing like you kind of got you Lambrini girls, and I'll be saying loved it from the very beginning. So let's go. Okay, because I know this will change the tempo. Karl, go on, hit us with your hurry up tomorrow, and maybe not the hurry up and finish, which might have been the flavour of some of my listens.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try keep this less than 90 minutes for sure. I feel like this is an album I could talk about for a while, but I won't. Yeah, I'm not too sure where to begin. I feel like it's only been out 2 weeks, and I've already gone through so many emotions and opinions on this project. I think I'll start by saying, The Weeknd, probably my favorite mainstream like pop act of like the last decade or so. Got into his music at university through my friend Jack, who I'll shout out, and also the iTunes single of the week, if you remember that, is his collaboration, The Zone with Drake, was one of those back in the day. And yeah, just basically followed him through his career since. And yeah, he's one of those artists that's kind of been there during a lot of like key moments. He headlined the first European festival that I went to, Benicassim in 2017. After Hours goes without saying. The first part of this trilogy came out really at the height of lockdown, and it was just like the escapism that I needed at that time. So I think because of that, I have like this strong emotional connection, I'd say, to him as an artist and his music. And like you say, Andrew, this being the final project, the final part of the trilogy, After Hours and Dawn FM, both making my top 10 of the year in the last couple of years too. There was so much hype around this one for me. And I think even despite not enjoying those singles leading up to it, it was still one that I was like, okay, I can't wait to see what he's got on this one. But yeah, that enthusiasm waned when I saw 22 tracks on the Apple Music app there. It was like, yeah, my heart sank. Rarely you get an album that long that delivers completely, and I would say this one isn't an exception. It's definitely a flawed project. Yeah, I think a good chunk of that second half can be cut for me. Timeless was one of the singles I didn't enjoy, and I think for me it's the worst track here. Really still can't get into that song at all. And then I Can't Wait to Get There. There's bits of that song that I like, but still I'm kind of like, if it wasn't there, I wouldn't miss it. And then Big Sleep, I was excited when I saw Giorgio Moroder on there, but I think that's a appropriate title for that song. I think when you get to that point in the back half, Big Sleep is exactly how you're feeling. Yeah, a lot of those tracks, like I say, they're not necessarily bad, but I think they just retread, a lot of the well-trodden ground, and I think just ultimately dampen like the album's impact by, adding to the runtime rather than adding to the experience for me. So that said, despite there being those maybe 5 or 6 songs I'd happily get rid of, I still absolutely love this record, and I just find myself reaching for it, even to play it front to back. I think it's flawed, but it's ambitious. It's immersive. It's kind of Lynchian in a way, in the way it kind of progresses through. You talked about the narrative arc running through the records, and the production from Mike Dean is just exceptional. You touched on it, Andrew. The way the songs knit together at times is just jaw dropping. I sent you all the memes about Baptized in Fear going into Open Hearts, that switch. It's just, yeah, outstanding. I think that whole first like 10-track or 8-track plus 2 interlude run is just brilliant. You know, Cry for Me, Wake Me Up with Justice, with the whole thriller vibe of that song going on. You know, Sao Paulo was one that I didn't rate, but in the context of the record, I like it a lot more. Reflections, Laughing, just real moody and cinematic. And then in the back half, you know, amidst some of the drearier moments, there are some high points too. Like probably some of I'd say my favorite cuts are actually in the back half, which is Take Me Back to LA, Give Me Mercy as well. Just both of those, just fantastic pop songs, great 80s shimmer to both of them. And then probably my two favorites right at the end, Without a Warning, which is just, I think you mentioned, Andrew, like his vocals, but for me on Without a Warning, that's the Weeknd at his peak for me. And the title track as well, very, in the context of it being his farewell, I think the lyrics and vocal performances really hit hard on those two songs. You know, we had it on in the car, like on a long drive. I think it might be when we were headed up to Kendall the other week, and it was the first playthrough. And I'm not ashamed to admit that when it reached like those two songs, and you know, you're just listening to the lyrics on Hurry Up Tomorrow, where he's like, now I'm drowning in the same bathtub where I learned how to swim, and you know, talking to his mom and like, I failed her like I failed myself. You know, it's really quite dark and really kind of underlines the toll that fame and touring has kind of taken on him. And yeah, I got quite choked up listening to that. I think by that point, I think even if they're not happy with it, I think the fans would kind of understand his decision to call it a day, you know, if it's getting to that point. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I could go on about this record, but I'll end it there. I think ultimately a frustrating one for me. I think just with a bit more editing, shuffling the track list around a bit, you know, this could have been his finest record. You know, I mentioned the vinyl version that I've got where I think it's like 9 or 10 tracks, and it's, you know, if you just it doesn't have some of the best cuts from this, you know, the digital version, shall we say. And I just think if you know, kept it about that length, you know, it probably could have been the best of the trilogy. But yeah, I think it's one of those that we'll have to see when the film comes out, whether there was a reason it had to be this long. But yeah, right now I love it, but I'm also disappointed because I know it could have been better.
There we go. So Kylie, last word on the last album by The Weeknd.
I agree with a lot of what you guys have covered. This album kind of just makes me mad. You know, give me my hipster cred. Like, I still think the first three, you know, House of Balloons, Thursday, Echoes of Silence, that's the Weeknd I've always really appreciated. But will agree with Karl. Well, you know, he's definitely one of the pop stars that always has my attention when he's doing something. But you know, for me, I think Beauty Behind the Madness and Starboy, that was kind of the last time that I was totally on board with everything that he's doing. And Dawn FM for me was just a low light. And I think Hurry Up Tomorrow in an edited form would be better than that record. Agree with you. The same thing, that the first 10 tracks it cut out the interludes. Although I'm glad you did mention Mike Dean, because I'm not usually much of a Mike Dean fan, and I think he did a fantastic job with this record, despite the length. But yeah, those first 10 songs are really pretty damn good. And then it's just it's a slog with that second half, and I continuously just bail and come back to it, you know, in the third rotation, like you, Andrew, you know, just have to divide it up and come back. But yeah, I think, you know, no one cares about The Weeknd going away as much as The Weeknd on this album. And, it's, I constantly get the feeling that it's like saying goodbye and standing at the door after, after a party. Yeah, going. And you're like, all right, bye. See you, Abel. And he's like, oh, but really, I'm going now. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to go to bed. Okay. There's just always, there's something, it just keeps going. Yeah. And it's very frustrating. And like, my final comment is, for as much as I've appreciated The Weeknd over the years, a lot of the time, he definitely has a distinct sound. And, I put this album on this last weekend when we were taking a little road trip and hadn't said anything about it. And, just to see my wife, who I typically will look to for more pop opinions, just to see what she thinks of it. And, she'd read the whole press thing that he's leaving the Weeknd moniker behind. And she said, well, if he releases things as Abel Tesfaye, is it still just going to sound like The Weeknd? And that's ultimately, this dude has a shitload of songs. He's got a huge discography. I mean, this isn't this is the longest album, but a lot of the time you're in for a good hour plus on these records. And I think he's got an admirable discography. But some editing would have got a long way to really tie the bow on this record. And I guess I need to, much like the vinyl version that you have, Karl, just need to put together a playlist that's Hurry Up Tomorrow, Kiley's version, because just there's a lot of fat on this record.
The idea of that an artist could release all their tracks and then just say, okay, you just pick the ones you like and put it, and that's your version. Like, yeah.
I did appreciate as well. Like, I was talking to my partner Hannah about this. Like, when we had the vinyl record on, it was like, if this was Taylor Swift, it would just be the same as what you get on, Spotify. Whereas he's actually, if he's doing all these exclusive like vinyl releases with the different covers, like at least it's a different experience to, listening on like, through your phone and like on the streaming services as well. So I do give him kudos for that. I did appreciate, when I hit play on the vinyl, it was like, okay, it's like listening to the album for the first time again. It was quite a cool experience.
So basically,
yeah, I like that idea too. I think too, it's, if this whole thing was on a vinyl version, there's a good chance it could be like 4 records long, which, that's an undertaking.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have bought it because it would have been too expensive.
Yeah. $100 easily.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, we have our first 5 albums of 2025 and some very mixed views across, I think, all of them.
Steve Whelan. I like it.
Yeah, it's quite rare actually. We've almost been too uniform. So let's forget that. I know already. I can see February's going to be in a similar vein. But yeah. So let's move on to the verdict. So I'll kind of keep the original sort of lineup. We'll have Karl first to run us down 5-1. Then Kiley, then me.
Okay, cool. So at 5, I've got Rose City Band, just the one I'm connected with the least. Next 2, I didn't know which way to go, but I've ended up with 4 Lambrini Girls. Like I say, enjoyed it, nice surprise, but maybe just not as much variety as the other albums here. 3, I've got Mogwai. Number 2, I've got Maribou State. And despite its flaws, it still feels like the most significant release for me this month. Definitely the one that I'll go back to the most. So I'm going for The Weeknd.
Should the Weeknd count as 2 releases and already one of the albums is 5 stars and the other one's 2?
Right, over to you now, Kiley.
Yeah, I just I did some brief research while we were here. I just want to clarify to the 25 people that watched this: Who Let the Dogs Out was not in Shrek. The biggest, most notable. Initially, there was a bidding war between Disney and Nickelodeon. Disney wanted to use it in 101 Dalmatians, which makes sense. And Nickelodeon wanted it for Rugrats in Paris, the movie. And Nickelodeon paid more money for it. So it's in Rugrats and
What a shame.
Bubble Boy, Men in Black 2, The Shaggy Dog, and The Hangover within its first decade of release. So, and I'm sure countless other things that we're missing here. As far as the countdown, number 5, Lambrini Girls, number 4, Mogwai, number 3, The Weeknd, number 2, Rose City Band, number 1, Maribou State.
Okay.
Such mixed voting. I don't know which way this is going to go.
Right. So for me, in 5th place, Maribou State. 2nd place, 4th place, Rose City Band. Squeaking just past Rose City Band, I have The Weeknd. So Lambrini Girls get 2nd place, and Mogwai take the win for me.
That's a messy score.
It's a Any guesses? How's your mental arithmetic there?
Terrible. I had an American education.
I cannot work out.
So, squeaking past joint 2nd place of Maribou State and Mogwai is The Weeknd. So, congratulations, The Weeknd, for winning the month. What a controversial win for January 2025. But still, it keeps it very, very interesting to the end, having such diverse views in these. So there we go. For Hurry Up Tomorrow, a very prominent release, and that's our winner for January 2025. So we're now up and running for the year. Next month, we'll share our views on albums by Maya Follick, Panda Bear, Richard Dawson, Sam Fender, and Sharon Van Etten and the Attachment Theory. Also, look out for our poll for the March episode, which will go live very soon. And as ever, you can stay up to date with what we're up to by following 5 to 9 on X and Instagram, eMusic Central via that, Karl Blakesley via Instagram and Threads, and Mama Mañana Records via @Mama Mañana Records on Instagram. Thanks for listening.